everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mila, you're at my book nook. So today I wanted to do a simple book recommendations list, and this is a list for specifically books that have old libraries, that feel like old libraries, that are not entirely dark academia, but could be like dark academia adjacent. There are some dark academia books on here, but I did want to sort of focus on the sort of old tomes, stacks of books, research kind of aspect that people don't really look at when it comes to dark academia. It is a part of dark academia, but I feel like people don't really focus on that as much. Also, apologies for the weird lighting. I decided to film just now because it was way too hot earlier, and I want to get as much filming done as I can before we leave for the US. So, apologies for the weird lighting, apologies for my hair being a bit of a mess, but let's get to it. So again, this is, old vibes, vintage vibes, dark academia vibes, but not necessarily dark academia. What better way to start with a dark academia adjacent book than the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer? I personally have 5 copies of the Odyssey, including one right here. Look at this. Look at this. This beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic, wonderful. Looks gorgeous in the light. Apologies for any external noise. I cannot control that. As well as the Iliad. I feel like these are quintessential. If you want to get into the dark academia vibe, if you want to get into that dark academia sort of mindset and aesthetic, definitely go for the OGs, which are the Homeric epic poems, Odyssey and the Iliad. I will recommend you the Aeneid as well if you're into romance. I'm not as much as you would expect me to be. I really regret turning off my fan, but the previous video that will already be up by the time this one is up, the fan was making noises, so I didn't want to make external noise, so yeah. Anyways, the next book I have is one that literally no one on BookTube talks about unless you search up like a deep dive into it, and it's not a very known book. Also, I find that there's not a lot of like Persian bookstagrammers, whether they're diaspora or Iranian, and I find that this is a really missed opportunity for people to really dive deep into the stories of Persia and of the Persian people. That is the Shahnameh by Ferdowsi. This is my really old, copy. This has the old sort of Penguin Classics kind of thing. I do have a newer copy. I don't like the way that the newer ones are made, because if you look at my copy, right, it's falling apart, but at the same time, it does have this, vintage vibe to it, which I love, and it's, look at that floppiness. Look at that, it's gorgeous. And it just has this on the front cover, the picture. It has this sort of vintagey filter on it, so to speak, like a patina on the image, whereas on the other one it just seems so sterile in a way. So yeah, so Shahnameh follows the beginning of the world, so to speak, and it is also an epic poem. It is the longest epic poem written by a singular person, and it has stories from the beginning of time all the way to the conquest by the Muslims of Persia. And it's separated into 3 ages. We have the mythic age, which are the mythical kings. We have the heroic age, which takes up about a good chunk of the stories are from the heroic age. So you have heroes such as Rustam, and you have the story of Rustam Mustaqrob, and then you have all these different stories and everything that make up a majority of the Shahnameh. And then you have the historic age, which is when Alexander the Great comes in and conquers Persia, and then when the Muslims come and conquer Persia, so to speak. So yeah, I would highly recommend this if you really want to dive deep into the history and lore, so to speak, of a nation that you may not have, of a people that you may not have known a lot about before. So I'd highly recommend, and that is Shahnameh, and I'd recommend the Penguin Classics version. The new one is also the same translation, so there's no difference in translation. but I just don't like the way that the newer copies are made. I know I complain about this a lot in, I think, my Count of Monte Cristo vlog, because my copy of the Count of Monte Cristo, theoretically speaking, if it was still using the same techniques that they used beforehand, it would have lasted much longer than it did. And when I would crack open the spines and when it got a little thrown around in my bag and everything, the spine was very weird, because it's as if water got underneath the spine, so to speak, like between the pages and the spine itself, like where it says the name and stuff. So like came out all wrinkly. Anyways, I don't like it. That's my rant. Penguin Classics do better. I'm disappointed. The next book I have is the one, the only, Babel. I'm not getting up to get my copies. You know what Babel is. It's one of the quintessential Dark Academia books. It is your response to The Secret History. It's inspired by Jonathan Strange and Mr. Lirael by Suzanne Clark, which I tried reading, not gonna lie, but that was a doozy, to be honest. I kept thinking that, oh, I read 100 pages. Oh, no, I read like 50. And that's when you know a book isn't working for you. I feel like a physical copy might work better, but have you seen the size of those physical copies? Jeez, good lord. Yeah, that's not happening. That's so not happening. But anyways, so I'd recommend Babel. Have I finished it? No, but I do remember that sort of old library vibe to it, because they do go to classes. You know, I think one of the parts of Dark Academia that people don't really focus on is the classes itself. What do they learn? They talk about like the conversations and stuff and the arguments and the this, the that. But what about like the going to the classes, like the motion of going from class to class, or of writing the essays, of doing the research paper? I feel like that's what some Dark Academia books are missing. So yeah. Anyways, moving on. We have Lirael, which is somewhere as well. I don't know where it is. I actually don't know where it is. But Lirael is the second book in the Old Kingdom series, and the first one is called Sabriel. You could read Sabriel alone and never continue, but if you're going to read Lirael, I'd recommend reading Sabriel first. You can go into Lirael not knowing the events of the previous book, but they're sort of connected, although there's a big time jump between the events of Sabriel versus the events of where Lirael starts, at least. And I know that people have said Sabriel, but I'm gonna call her Sabriel anyways. But yeah, Lirael follows our main character, Lirael, who lives in this sort of ice place, this glacier, so to speak, and basically she lives within this like society of people who have this sight of the future, right? They have the futuristic sort of sight, seeing kind of thing. They're seers, essentially, and essentially she keeps counting down to the days of fairies' birthdays, where she thinks, oh, she's going to be blessed by the sight. Oh, she's going to be blessed by the sight. But she's always known that she's somewhat different to the others around her, right? And so it comes to her, like, 16th birthday, I believe, and she still hasn't gotten the sight. And then it turns out that she's destined for something completely different than being one of the seers, one of the clear, they're called. And there literally is a section of the book where she works in a library. And she goes looking through, like, forbidden rooms. Like, she goes and explores the library. I feel like that's as old library as you can get, I think. The next book I have is a series I haven't fully finished yet, because I kind of forgot it existed for a while. But it is called The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman, I believe it is. And so this one follows our main character, whose name I've forgotten. I feel like it's Irina, I think. And basically she's this agent of the library, and she has to find these books in various realms and bring them back to the library before anyone sort of finds out. And then we have her assistant, I believe his name is Kai, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I read even the first book. I don't think I ever really went beyond the first book, but I'm still interested in reading this series. And so he joins her, and he's like this dragon creature, and his dad's like this really prolific dragon, and so they go on a bunch of like adventures and stuff, I guess. So yeah, so that'll be interesting to read at some point one day. The next thing I have is Ink and Bone, which is by Rachel Caine. Rest in peace. She has unfortunately passed away, which was very sad to hear. This is basically if the Library of Alexandria never burnt down. I feel like someone whose channel name is and was, something related to the Library of Alexandria, this is fitting. I remember really liking the first 2 books, and then I still don't understand how the book thing works. Is it a tablet and they just place the book and they make sure to have the specific slips inside and just transports itself to the specific library? Anyways, I don't remember much of this, but I remember really enjoying it, and yeah, I'm surprised this isn't more popular, I guess, on BookTube. I feel like we need to make it popular. Again, rest in peace to the author, but I remember really enjoying it. The next thing I have is a book I haven't finished because it actually gave me headaches. I had headaches reading this book. And this, there's one other series, the name of which I have forgotten at the moment, that has given me headaches, and it was that series, that children's series, and this book, which is Vita Nostra by something and someone Dichenko, I think. And this follows our main girl, Sasha, who goes on vacation with her mom, and basically there's this stranger that follows her and is like, you're going to pass these tests, you're gonna swim out at 6 o'clock in the morning and touch the thing, otherwise someone will get hurt. Then she gets accepted into this really weird school and they learn these really strange things. I'm telling y'all, I had a headache. I had headaches while I was reading this book. I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe I was in a reading slump, but I don't think I will ever read this book again because I had headaches. And it was kind of ridiculous, actually. So yeah, I would recommend this for the weird school vibe, I guess. So not exactly old library, but it just feels, if you're sort of a post-Soviet Union kid, you sort of get that nostalgia feeling that you have with old libraries. So I'd recommend it for that purpose. The next thing I have is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I have read the first book. I have not finished the second book. I haven't even read the second book. I saw that one quote from the second book, and then I was just like, no, I don't want to read it. Also, the covers are kind of, I don't want a book on my shelf with a white rat on it, I don't know. The black snake's cool, but the white rat just is a little unsettling. Anyways, Ninth House follows our main girl Alex, who basically goes to Harvard? ? And basically has to be sort of the investigator for magical activities on campus. And yeah, and shit goes down. And again, with the old mystery vibe, Leigh Bardugo has this really good way of setting a vibe. She has a very distinct vibe from Shadow and Bone to Six of Crows to Ninth House to, I think, her other books as well. But I haven't read Familiar or King of Scars, so I can't really tell you. Shadow and Bone, all I know of that is bits and pieces I read and the TV show. Six of Crows I read 2 times. So I recommend it for the weird vibes, so to speak. There isn't necessarily a lot of research stuff, but I'd still recommend it for the weird vibes. The vibes. We're going off the vibes? We're going off the vibes. So the next book I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray, and this is because there's literally a chapter where he obsesses over a bunch of different things. And it's such an interesting chapter because that's, I feel like, where the Dark Academia vibe really hits. And yeah, it's just it's a quintessential classic and a quintessential book for the Dark Academia loving fans, so to speak. And then we have something that's slight pivot, not entirely, sorry, it's just really hot. Not entirely old library vibes, but very much research kind of feel. So not entirely going to the library vibes, but very much research vibes, which is the Love's Academic series by India Holton. The first book is The Ornithologist Field Guide to Love. The second book is The Geographer's Map to Romance. And I thought these were so adorable. She has such a funny way of writing. She has a wonderful way of writing. It's so funny. They're so fun. The third book I feel like would definitely fit this sort of category with libraries because it's called the Antiquarian's Object of Desire. And I'm so excited for that one. We have nothing really about that book except for like the tropes. Sorry, it's like really hot. And yeah, so I'd highly recommend that. The first one follows ornithologists, so bird people, and they have to go find this bird, and it's like an enemies to lovers. And then the second one follows two geographers who go to this tiny town in Wales, I believe, where they have to figure out the cause of a tornado, so to speak, like twisters, so to speak, and they're in a marriage of inconvenience, except they're both absolutely and utterly in love with each other. So, would highly recommend. Again, with that sort of vibe where it's like not fully libraries, but sort of leaning libraries because there's lore and stuff like that. It's lore heavy, and that is the Legendborn cycle by Tracy Deonn. There is a lot of that sort of connecting to the King Arthur sort of thing, and there's a lot of like lore and hierarchy stuff, which I feel like is also very like, I don't want to say Dark Academia-esque, but sort of that old nostalgic vibe kind of thing, I guess you'd think. I don't know. Does that make sense? So in this one we follow our main girl, Bree Matthews, who thinks that her mother's death was not an accident, and she enrolls into the school where her mother went, and she discovers that she actually has deeper connections to the school than she realized, and she joins the secret society. She also witnesses like a freak accident, so to speak. Like she sees literal demons, and she was almost pulverized by a demon. And yeah, and so she discovers that she has deeper ties with the society and the school specifically than she realized. And yeah, this was a fantastic exploration of found family, of your people, of the story of a people whose history was very much violently erased, since Bree is African American and like she's black, so there's a lot of it touches on slavery quite a bit, on that sort of violence from white people towards the African population in America, the slaves especially, and it's so beautifully tied in. It was so fantastic. The next book I have is Frankenstein, and you guys want to see this really cool version of Frankenstein that I got? Look at this! It's so cool! Oh my god! I am obsessed with this. Obsessed. Look at this. Isn't this the coolest freaking edition? Like, are you kidding me? Like, shut the front door. Anyways, this is another quintessential. As you can see, I really like the word quintessential for some reason. This is another need-to-read Dark Academia book. I feel like it's one of the most Dark Academia books of Dark Academias, in line with The Picture of Dorian Gray. And this talks about the human condition, humans, monsters, all that stuff. I don't remember exactly because it's been a minute since I read this, but I'm really excited to reread it. And yeah, it's a really cool copy. It's a really cool copy. And that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my book recs. I know not all of them are very old libraries, but they do have this sort of element of Dark Academia, of vibes, of nostalgia. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below. Follow me on all my socials, including my Instagram and my Substack, since I have moved over from Squarespace to Substack. And I will see you in the next one. Happy reading!